welcome back to the Conservative Cat Show, the only place where the truth isn't just a soundbite, okay? It is the spotlight, where sacred institutions that make this country, that are supposed to make this country strong, faith, family, freedom. We want to have those institutions, have those tenets of faith, family, and freedom here at this show. And we are going to be guarding the truth with our claws, with our tail twitching. I'm Conservative Cat. It's Friday. My mind is on the weekend. I don't know about you, but sometimes on Friday, my mind just goes to the weekend. I'm just like, okay, I'm hoping that we can go to the farmer's market tomorrow. I'm really excited. I am all about Saturday morning farmer's markets. Okay. So we have so much news to get to today. Today we're going to be talking about the children. Like I said, we need to protect our sacred institutions. We need to protect our government institutions. We need to ensure that there is faith, there is family, there is freedom, because in Illinois, under Governor J.B. Pritzker's watch, the kids are literally dying. Okay. And I don't mean that figuratively. I don't mean that metaphorically. I mean it literally. The kids are dying. We're going to go to a DCFS story today. They're dying under the radar of under the watch of his Department of Children and Family Services. So we are going to be chatting a little bit about that this morning. I also want to chat about your kids' school becoming a psych ward, thanks to Governor J.B. Pritzker. We're going to be talking about mental health screenings, but we're also going to be talking about Pete Hegseth, because this was just a chef's kiss moment. Karen Bass, she's on X celebrating the retreating of the troops, the National Guard that Donald Trump had deployed there. She's saying that they're retreating because she's winning and because LA is winning. That's not true. The mission's complete. That's why National Guard is pulling out slowly but surely. And Pete Hegseth has a response for Karen Bass that you won't want to miss here on the Conservative Cat Show. Let's go to DCFS, and then we'll get to the mental health screenings. Be sure to throw comments in the comments section. I'll take your chats today. Good morning. Shabbat Shalom. I so do appreciate you being here this morning. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. That is the best way to support the program. It's just by simply subscribing. You can also support us by visiting patriotpumpenergy.com and buying a bottle of premium pre-workout, whether it's for you or for a friend. Christmas is right around the corner. This is a great stocking stuffer. Go ahead, buy your bottle of pre-workout today. There are no artificial colorings, and it is a fantastic supplement, let me tell you. It keeps me focused on everything that I've got to do, the news stories that I write, the shows that I do every morning. It keeps me focused with that black pepper extract. It's a really great supplement. Okay. The governor, he had the gall to say this, and I'm quoting him, "The buck stops with me, but change takes time." Governor, how much time do our children have left? Because let's be real, this isn't about red versus blue, okay? This is about right versus wrong. And Governor J.B. Pritzker has had 6 years to get DCFS under control. 6 years of unchecked power, 6 years of Democrat supermajority, 6 years of platitudes and press conferences. And in that time, what do we have to show for it? Mackenzie Flemley, she has died. She was an 18-year-old girl under the radar, under the watch of DCFS. And it's not only did she die, okay, but the people she was entrusted, her care was entrusted to, her foster mother and her foster mother's mother, okay, they were charged with her death. So let me break this down. The foster system is meant to protect children, okay, not hand children over to killers. Okay, and the governor's response here, he says, "We're looking into the outside agency that DCFS hired." You know, I notice this all of the time. Whenever government makes mistakes, they always blame the third parties that they hire. Why the hell are you hiring people anyway? Aren't you getting $55 billion of our tax dollars to spend? Why are you hiring third parties to do your job? Why wouldn't we just hire the third parties and cut out the middleman? Every single time there's a mistake in government, They will always blame the third-party agency that they hired. Let me ask you, America, do we fire the shepherd who hires the wolf to guard the sheep? Okay, do we blame the wolf for guarding the sheep, or do we fire the shepherd, or do we blame the shepherd? We would blame the shepherd if the shepherd left a wolf there to guard the sheep. Okay, real wolves are in Springfield, folks. I do want to play this clip, and then we're going to talk some numbers, because Representative Tom Weber didn't hold back, and I'm not going to hold back. The Auditor General's report is full of failures from DCFS. 29 out of 34 failures at DCFS are repeat failures. So let me repeat that for you. 85% of failures are not new. Okay, that they're known, they're ignored, prevented, but they repeat them anyway. So 29 out of 34 failures at DCFS are repeat failures. Let's take a listen to this clip. Here we go.
Sarah Perry, Zara Walker, Tamsin Miracle Sawyer, Sophia Faye Davis. These are just a few of the names of children who DCFS has failed in recent years and who could still be alive today. And now we have the deeply troubling case of Mackenzie family. Clearly, we need to do more than just throw money at this problem, as the governor likes to do.
Listen, the buck stops with me about state government. There's no doubt about it. I have responsibility for the agencies under my executive authority. I would remind you, and I know this gets lost often by opponents, they don't want to talk about the fact that it takes some time to turn things around when things aren't working. And I have to say, particularly a child welfare agency. I know that people say, well, gee, you've been in office for 6 years. You know, how come this hasn't been entirely fixed? How come we haven't fixed the pension problem? How come we haven't, made everything easy in the state of Illinois? Some of these things are built into a system that has failed for 25, sometimes longer years. And we have worked diligently, particularly at the Department of Children and Family Services.
I don't know any of us that would have our jobs after 6 years of failures. And this isn't just failures, this is fatal mismanagement, right? So the buck does stop with him. He is overseeing these things, and this isn't, an us versus them. This is something we can all be working together.
We know only a few things. I think they've all been made public, the things that we know. And we try to act on those immediately, whatever it is that we know. For example, as you know, this was an outside agency that's been contracted by DCFS to monitor that particular child. So obviously questions about that outside agency have been pursued.
Children at risk of abuse are the very definition of our most vulnerable, yet they are being failed in the worst possible way. Protecting vulnerable children is not and should not be a partisan issue. Protecting them is our most basic responsibility as a state. I've spoken with legislators on both sides of the aisle who agree. Yet the majority party and Governor Pritzker have consistently rejected Republican efforts to reform this broken agency. The Auditor General's report released this week showed that 29 of 34 failures are repeat findings. That's 85% repeat failures. That is a problem that comes with failed leadership. Governor Pritzker, you've had 6 years, yet the failures continue, and children are dying. It's time to work across the aisle for new solutions.
Okay. So I wanted to share that with you. Look, folks, Governor J.B. Pritzker, he wants to talk about how changes take time. This is an 85% failure rate. Okay, repeat failure rate. Let me ask you this. If your child, God forbid, was at risk, would you be okay with an 85% failure rate in their protection plan? Okay, if this were a private daycare, picture this, a private daycare, it would be shut down. Owners would be jailed. But because this is government, they get more money, more excuses, and there are more little graves and little coffins being made for children. And this is the part where we don't call it mismanagement. This is the part where we start calling it, it's not even fatal mismanagement, as Representative Laha had said in that clip. I would say it's criminal negligence, and that might be harsh, but then you start to remember, no, these kids are actually dying. Mackenzie Flemley actually died. Now, I want to shift focus here for a second, because this isn't just a political failure, it's a spiritual failure, and it's spiritual collapse, because there should be outrage from our pastors over DCFS. And then DCFS is relatively new. This sort of stuff, fostering children, used to take place in the church, and it should be restored to the church, or this responsibility should be restored to the church again. Where is the voice of the church in Illinois when our state fails orphans, fails our foster kids, they let child abusers slip through the bureaucratic cracks? They don't take kids away from parents who definitely need to have their kids taken away. We talk about protecting life in the womb all the time as Christian conservatives, and as Republicans, we talk about the pro-life issue, as we should, right? But we also have to start talking about them after birth as well. Because in James chapter 1, verse 27, it says this: and any Bible-believing Christian should call for the dismantling of DCFS and ask for this responsibility of our foster children, taking care of our foster children, taking care of our orphans, be restored to the church. So religion, so James 1:27 says this: religion that God our Father accepts as pure and faultless is this, to look after orphans and widows in their distress. So we are called to look after orphans as Christians, and we have outsourced, like many things, this duty, this sacred duty of protecting our orphans to the government, and really the church should be taking care of something like this. And let me say this plainly: if the government can't protect orphans, it's not just failing at policy, it is rebelling against God. So that might be a hot take. I say we dismantle the whole thing, and churches step up and they assume or they take over the duty again, because that's actually the way it used to be. So the school system is broken, the tax system is punishing us, and DCFS is endangering our children. Governor J.B. Pritzker, he is, posing and posturing as the guy for working families. He says that the Democrat Party is for working families, but we all know what's going on. We all know that DCFS is broken and their failure rate, I mean, you might not have knew that specific number of 85% repeat failures. So these are failures that are not just failures, but they are repeated. We already know that we are one of the highest tax states in the nation, and that we have a pension. He mentioned liability of over $145 billion. He didn't mention the number. I will. Republicans in Illinois have tried to address a lot of these things: the pension debt, the school system being broken, the tax system punishing people. Republicans have tried over the years to bring accountability. They've proposed things like audits, legislative reforms, oversight boards, investigations, but they've been blocked every single time, or their bills don't even make it out of committee, folks. They're ignored, they're dismissed because they have the wrong letter in front of their name. They have the wrong letter, so therefore they are never listened to in Springfield. They're never listened to by the Democrats. So let me speak directly to some of you Democrats out there, because I know Democrats listen. This isn't about partisanship anymore. This is about a child welfare system that has gone completely incompetent. It is so incompetent that it's fatal, that it's lethal. And if you want bipartisan solutions, great. Stop circling the wagons around the governor, who's hiding behind press releases while children are being buried, and hiding behind slogans like change takes time. Okay. Stop hiding behind him and actually get things done, and work with your colleagues across the aisle to get things done, like reform, like accountability, like oversight hearings, like investigations. DCFS isn't suffering from a funding shortage, and the Democrats will tell you that. They're suffering from mission failure, from a mission failure. Their mission is wrong. It's off. they tend to, and I just know this, DCFS, they want to, their end goal is to reunite children with their parents. And that's a noble goal, but really the mission should be to protect the children at all costs and place them with people who are going to love them. If that's not their parents, that's not their parents. If that's not, this really what's going on is it's almost like state sanctioned human trafficking, the DCFS system and what it's become. And I know that sounds like outrageous and exaggeration, like I'm exaggerating or hyperbole. There are people who become foster parents for the money. Okay. And they don't give a damn about the children. There's zero vetting going on. And people who should not be foster children or foster parents are becoming foster parents simply for the checks that come in the mail, the government checks that come in the mail. And that is not taking care of children. That is human trafficking. People are getting paid to purchase, to take children. I mean, that's what it's kind of become, and we're not vetting people anymore. So we don't need any more money. We don't need any more consultants. We definitely don't need to be hiring outside agencies. At this point, if they're just going to outsource it, then the church just needs to take it back. We should be in charge of taking care of orphans, the church, not the government, because guess what? We gave it to the government, we outsourced it, and guess what they did? They outsourced it, and we need accountability. So this means holding caseworkers responsible, firing people. That is something that, much like the Joe Biden administration, the Governor J.B. Pritzker administration does not do. We need to fire top-level bureaucrats who have overseen the repeat failures, and we need to make a statement with their firings and with firing them that would make a statement, and that, hey, we're not going to put up with failure. We are striving for excellence, and if we don't get excellence, then you're fired. And yes, I think that even in some of these cases, especially the McKenzie case, there should be criminal charges when appropriate. If we're not vetting foster parents and we're giving foster children to people who just take them for the money, and they are abusive and they are killing their foster children, then we need to put caseworkers on trial. We need to charge them criminally when it's appropriate. So more than anything, we need to restore parental rights and push family here in the state of Illinois, push for heterosexual man, woman, married couple, family units, okay, because that is just statistically true, saying that children do better in opposite sex households where there is a man and a wife overseeing the family. The children do better, so we should be pushing for that, making it easier for a parent to stay home with the child and teach the child. Kids do better in homeschool. I mean, we have all the numbers, the statistics. We know what yields the highest outputs. Okay, we just won't do it, and we don't push for it. So this whole like LGBTQ thing at the state level needs to go, because that's not helpful to children. The whole public school, as soon as they, are birthed out of the womb, get them in public school or get them into these indoctrination camps. We know that's not good for children. So we need to restore parental rights in this state as well, because let's not forget DCFS. They don't just put foster kids with bad foster parents, okay, that wind up, and then the kids wind up dead. They actually target innocent parents as well with false allegations. They yank kids out without due process, and they operate like, if you don't give your kid a sex change, right, at the age of 9, you shouldn't have your parental rights revoked, your kid yanked from you without any kind of due process. And they operate in the shadows without any kind of transparency, DCFS, and they target innocent parents, parents who are, happen to be heterosexual, parents who happen to preach biblical values from within the walls of their home, or perhaps they homeschool their children. I mean, we just talked about couple of months ago, homeschool parents being targeted, and these are the kids that yield the best results. Homeschooling yields the best results academically. They perform better. And we're targeting those parents, right? So, they fail to protect the truly vulnerable while simultaneously terrorizing good families and good values and faith. And it proves that this system has just become weaponized bureaucracy, just totally drunk on their power. And it's because nobody gets fired. That's why they're so drunk on power. They know that they won't be fired. They know that they get to stay. So what do? We stand up. You pick up the phone. You flood the office, the governor's office, with phone calls. You demand the resignation of DCFS leadership. We call our state legislators to subpoena records, hold hearings, and pass real reforms, because really that's what needs to happen here. We need to subpoena how many times did the caseworker go check up on this foster mother who killed Mackenzie. We need to know that information. How many times, or what were the records kept on this foster mother? What did they say about her? How was she vetted? What caseworker vetted her to and approved her as a foster parent? So come November, we need to vote out the architects of this disaster. And it starts at the top. It starts at Governor J.B. Pritzker himself, because there are only two types of people left in Illinois. Those who are awake to the corruption that is going on, and those who are complicit in it and are benefiting from it. Okay, so you're either awake to the corruption and you want to stop it, or you're complicit in it and you're benefiting from it. Those are the only two types of people left in Illinois. This isn't about politics anymore. This is about the soul of our state. This is about standing up for those who can't speak for themselves. The Bible commands us to stand up for orphans, specifically orphans and widows. These are children who are trapped in a broken, godless system. And if you think it's too bold or too angry or too loud to call the governor's office, to demand firing, to demand possibly criminal charges, remember, this little girl is dead. Mackenzie Flemley is dead, and Governor J.B. Pritzker is holding press conferences. That is still going on. Okay, so I do want to shift gears. We are going to get to the mental health screenings. We talked about the broken DCFS, the godless system that is DCFS, but I do also want to talk about our public school system, because it all kind of starts there as well. Today's episode, it kind of hits close to home. We're going to go into your child's classroom. We're talking about your son's private emotions. We're talking about your daughter's God-given mind. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker just signed the controversial Senate Bill 1560. This is a law that mandates universal mental health screenings for as young as kids as third grade. So it's third grade through 12th grade. So let me ask you something, and throw your answer in the comment section. What could possibly go wrong when the same government that can't fix potholes and can't fix the I-80 bridge or balance a budget or address the pension issue or keep kids in DCFS care from dying, what could possibly go wrong when that same government starts diagnosing your child's mind and making the school district a psych ward? So let's start with what's in this bill. By 2027, every single child from third grade up will have to get screened mentally once a year. That's every single year, whether they need it or not. So the law says the school must do it, and that local school districts cannot opt out, blanket opt out. Now, parents can opt out of this thing, okay? Now, I want you to think hard about that, okay? This isn't an offer. This isn't a suggestion. This is a mandate from the state onto the local school district. The local school district cannot opt out. They shoved their little grubby mittens into the schools from the top down, courtesy of the same governor who thinks that parents should have no voice in what their kids are taught, read, injected with. And now they want you, or they want to diagnose your child with stuff. Okay, so they think that parents should have no voice in what their kids are read and taught, because we know that this is probably the most anti-school choice state. They got rid of, and Governor J.B. Pritzker was silent on this issue, the Invest in Kids Act, which was a school choice program. So we know that they don't want parents having a voice in what their kids are read and taught and what school they go to. Now they don't want parents to have a say in what their kids are diagnosed with as far as mental disorders go. So Governor J.B. Pritzker, of course, during a press conference, he stood in Evanston. Now, something you need to know about Evanston is the hub of if we could get rid of Evanston, we would be a much better state. Outside of Chicago, I think Evanston is the worst place in Illinois. Okay, this is the hub of the elite progressive ideology. And he stood there and he declared, quote, "They provide early identification. They help us break down stigma." So this is what Governor J.B. Pritzker said during this presser: early intervention, early identification of these mental health disorders, right? Let me translate what he means there. This isn't about help. This is about control. Okay, because here's what early identification really means. Grab a green crayon if you have to and write this down. I'm going to go bullet point by bullet point. There's 3 bullet points I want to share with you. Here's what early identification really means. Number 1, label a child with anxiety at age 9. Now he's flagged. Okay, so the earlier get him, the better it is. They flag him. He's 9 years old and he's flagged. You screen the teen for depression during puberty. And, you know, who's performing these mental health screenings? Probably not biblical type people. Probably not even, I would say, doctors, elite doctors. Most likely these are going to be like your average counselor, your average high school counselor who's not really qualified or equipped to be performing these kinds of screenings. They're going to diagnose teenagers with puberty, or who are going through something as crazy as puberty. They're going to diagnose them with depression. And again, they're going to flag them as a teen. Okay, so they're flagged at 9. They're flagged as a teenager. Number 3, they'll diagnose your daughter with ADHD because she's talkative in class. And they'll label her, and that label is going to follow her for the rest of her life. Okay, that's what early identification truly means. It means misdiagnosis. It means flagging these kids really early. This isn't fixing anything. This isn't a Band-Aid. We're not fixing anything here. This is a branding iron. We are branding children with mental disorders, and we are deeming them unfixable. And guess what the devil does? That's what the devil does. He says that you can never get out of your depression. You are your anxiety. You are your depression. That's what the devil does. So like I said, Democrats are just the devil. Okay, they are just anti-Christian. At this point, this type of ideology, labeling children with their mental diseases and telling them that they will never get better, telling them that they are their disease, which is exactly what psychiatrists and these therapists and counselors do. They will say, oh, you are your anxiety, you're just going to have to manage it. You are your ADHD, and you're just going to have to manage it. Okay, once your child is labeled, it won't be erased. It goes onto a file. It sticks with them forever. It goes into a record. It goes into a database. And the left loves that. They love the files. Because they don't trust the parents and they don't trust the churches. They trust the systems. And once they have that, you turn 25, you might not be able to get a firearm, right? If you were deemed with depression when you were a teen, or if you were deemed with anxiety at the age of 9, you might not be able to get a firearm. The left doesn't want you to raise smart, healthy, spiritually grounded children who know who they are and won't let these mental disorders define them. Okay, the left doesn't want that. They want you to raise compliant wards of the state and children who think very, very low of themselves and chalk themselves out to their outwardly appearance, to their hair color, to their sexual identity, their pronouns, and they have a very low sense of like self-esteem. They want that. They want to normalize drag queens in libraries, gender confusion in curriculum, mental awareness or wellness as a public health crisis. They want to normalize mental wellness as a public health crisis, and they want mental illness to not be stigmatized. It should be. Nobody should want to be mentally ill, and God can take away anything. Your anxiety, your depression, your schizophrenia, right? You are not your mental illness, and you are able to be pulled out of it through the name of Jesus. And they don't want you to think that way. They want you to think that this is a forever condition and that you are forever in this crisis because it keeps you down, and it keeps your self-confidence and your self-esteem very, very low, which makes you a fantastic little ward of the state. So, and now they are all bringing this, the drag queens, the gender confusion, the mental wellness, public health crisis. They are bringing it all under the same roof. That is your child's classroom. So they're going to be doing mental health screenings. Think about it. You got the mental health screenings. You got the referrals. Your kids are going to be referred to psychiatrists. You're going to have to take them to this psychiatrist, that psychiatrist, put them on these pills, followed by intervention. So you're going to have to treat their mental illness. And they'll probably do all of this without your knowledge. They probably won't involve you at all. And you have got to jump through hoops in order to opt out of this thing as a parent. These mental health screenings, these annual mental health screenings. So in a system that already hides gender transitions from parents, the IEA instructed the Illinois Education Association via an email, instructed districts and schools all around the state to obtain written consent from the child to share that child's gender identity or sexual orientation with their parents. So you can't inform the parents already about the kid's gender identity or transitions. And this is already going on. Do you really think they're going to keep you informed on what the screening results are and what their intervention is going to be and what their referrals are going to be? They're not going to keep you in the loop, and they're just going to treat your child without your say-so. So thank God we've got some truth tellers out there. In this clip, you'll hear a few people, one of them being State Representative Stephen Reich. He's a Republican, and he said this, quote, "We end up having kids who are screened, and you don't know where that's going to lead. Who gets a hold of the screening, and what's going to happen with that screening when the kid turns 25? I mean, does this record follow he or she forever?" Take a listen.
We know how transformational these screenings can be for kids at this age. They provide early identification and intervention so that those who are struggling get the help that they need as soon as possible. They provide early identification and intervention so that those who are struggling get the help that they need as soon as possible. They improve academic and social outcomes. They help us break down the stigma that too often is a barrier to seeking help.
Universal mental health screenings are going to get us nothing except possibly finding reasons for denial of coverage of insurance, or running afoul of all sorts of requirements for confidentiality. We end up having kids who are screened as potential with some sort of potential mental issue. You don't know where that's going to lead.
As the governor said, like vision screening, hearing screening, and dental screening, mental health screenings will help us provide timely and appropriate interventions. The earlier we identify the need, the better support we can provide that to students to help them thrive in school and in life.
Where are we going to go with that? What's going to happen when kids become adults and they look back and they say, oh, this guy had a certain amount of had indications of such and such. I'm not going to say what.
Okay. So I wanted to play that with for you. This Stephen Reich, he said that where are you going to go with this mental health screening? What's going to wind up happening is your kid at 12 years old is going to be flagged for emotional volatility or something like that. And at the age of 25, he can't buy a firearm. Okay. And what happens if insurance companies get a hold of this record and it says something like depressive tendencies? Okay. Is that going to hike up your family's premiums? Okay. Your health insurance premiums. What happens when the military or the police academy or a private employer looks at your young adult's file, at 12 years old, and it says, depressive tendencies, emotional volatility, anxiety, right? The police academy, the military, this private employer might say, sorry, you're too risky. You were flagged at the age of 14. You're now 24, 10 years later. I mean, let's call this what this is. This is pre-crime profiling for children. Okay, they haven't committed any crimes, but yet what they're doing is they're labeling children. They're slapping yet another label on these kids, whether it's LGBTQ, you're gay, you're trans, you're a furry, right? This is yet another label to slap on children and tell them who they are. But the government shouldn't tell your child who they are. Jesus, your identity is found in Jesus and through Christ. And just like every other surveillance system, your government promises it's to help you until it doesn't, right? So the church has to wake up. Let me speak directly to the Christian parents here. This is not a neutral program. This is a secular, government-endorsed, state-run attempt to reshape your child's heart and mind without the word of God present, without spiritual discernment, and without your authority. They want to reshape your child's heart into believing that they are their depression. And then their depression is going to follow them all the way up until they're 25 years old. Proverbs 22:6 says, train up the child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. So they are just manipulating the scripture, the left, right? Proverbs 22:6 is train up the child in the way that they should go. So they want to train this child up into believing that he or she has anxiety, okay, when really, or ADHD, when really, the kid has some fear and needs to say a prayer out loud and ask Jesus for peace. When really the kid is just kind of talkative, okay? They're going to train this child up into believing that they are their mental illness. And when they grow old, they're never going to depart from that. And they are going to believe that they can't be a contributing member of society. And this ailment will cripple them, or this belief in this ailment will cripple them for the rest of their life. So really what the Democrats are doing here with the mental health screenings, this is just twisting scripture to their benefit. They are training up the child in the way they believe that this child should go. And if we hand our kids mental formation over to the progressive activists in government, we are not training them. We are surrendering them. Mental health, the mental health model they're using doesn't see your child made in the image of God, possible of doing great things through the power of and in the name of Jesus Christ. They don't see that. Okay, why? Because they're not Christians. Okay, their mental health model is you are a data point. You have to be managed and labeled. Okay, that is their mental health model. What kind of ailment can we label you with? And this label is going to stick with you your whole life. And you shouldn't let anybody tell you that just because you have anxiety, you're a bad person or anything like that, which I'm not saying that anybody who suffers from anxiety or ADHD, like actually, I'm not saying that they're bad people. I'm saying that there should be a stigma around those things. Those things aren't good. Okay. The Bible says, I think over 300 times, fear not. So there's a clear instruction in the Bible that, hey, your anxiety, worry, it's all sin. Okay. And you should pray for peace, and you should ask for peace because that is something that is good. These things are bad, and it's not something to be celebrated. Anxiety is not something to be celebrated. Depression is not something to be celebrated or worn as like a fur coat. Okay, that's where I think we're headed. Is we're starting to call sin a disorder. Okay, and that is not that is not the way we should be going. I mean, they're going to start saying faith is a threat. Okay, believe it or not, I know you believe it. They'll start saying that faith is a threat, and anybody who tells you that your anxiety is wrong and that you should get out of your anxiety, or anybody who tells you, hey, you should get out of your depression, hey, you should get out of your anorexia, hey, you should get out of your gender dysphoria. Anybody who says that, they're going to say, oh, you're stigmatizing, or, oh, how could you? You know, this is who they are. No, they are not their anxiety. They are not their gender dysphoria. They are not their anorexia. They should have faith, and faith is not a threat. Faith is going to be what pulls you out of that thing. So, yes, technically, you're probably asking, what do I do to stop this? You can opt out as a parent, but only you can. The local school board cannot, which means your kid's principal, your district, your superintendent, your school board president, they're all forced to comply with these mandates. However, I would still call them anyway and tell them to stick it to the state and say, screw you, because you'd be surprised what local control, how powerful local control actually is. This might be a mandate at the state level, and they might say, oh, yeah, it's a mandate at the state level, but really, they can operate outside of it. Just look at sanctuary states, right? Under federal law, it is illegal. Illegal immigration, border jumping is illegal. But yet we have states all across the country who have said, no, we're not going to play by the rules of the federal law. Okay. So if they can do it, we can do it. Right. So if you're a local school board president, you're watching, craft up an ordinance and pass it and say, we won't be participating in the mental health screenings that is mandated by the state, and see what they do. They probably won't do anything. So they most likely aren't going to dedicate the resources to sue you and to force you to comply with it. And if they do, so what? At least you took a stand, right? So this is a deliberate effort, by the way. It's a mandate. It's a deliberate effort to remove local control on top of everything else. They are trying to remove local control from education. So the only thing left between you and your child is the state. Or the only thing left between your child and the state is you. Okay. So they're trying to remove this local control. And you have to let that sink in, because this isn't new in Illinois. Parental rights are just a speed bump. Okay. They are not a boundary. Just because you are standing in between the way of the state and your child doesn't mean that you won't be plowed over, because they don't see you as a boundary. They see you as a speed bump, and they'll get around you somehow. Okay. Whether that's outlawing homeschooling, doing regular door knock checks, and I'm sure once you opt out of this, you're going to put a target on your back, and they're probably going to be knocking on your door. Hey, why did little Timmy not opt into the mental health screening? Is he okay? You're going to put a target on your back if you opt out of this thing. So get prepared for that. They're hoping you're too busy, you're too exhausted, or they're trusting that you're going to say no, that you won't say no to the opting out or to the mental health screenings. They're hoping that you're too busy to figure this thing out. So don't sleep on this. Here's your conservative cat checklist. If you're a parent, you need to file the opt-out immediately. Don't wait until 2027 when the mental health screenings start. Get ready now. Start asking questions. Demand to know what kind of screening questions they're going to be asking. Even if you opt out of this, don't just opt out and then not think about it again, okay? Until the following year, because you have to opt out every single year, which is just a hoop that is so unnecessary. But even if you opt your children out, you should know what the screening tools they're using on the other children as well. You need to run for your school board. We can't stop this law. I mean, it's already law, but we can for sure call up our Republican state lawmakers and ask them to propose a repeal or to amend this Orwellian law. We can control how it's implemented. And I would suggest if you're a local school board member or president or whatever, or if you're a local school district, and you have some sort of authority for you to exercise your power and your authority and see what happens. Opt out of it entirely as a school district. See if the state comes after you. I doubt it. So we need to pray and fight because our kids, their hearts are not state property. Okay. And we must raise our kids to be strong and to not believe that they are weak and that they are their ailment. And that is what therapists do. They forever slap a label on you and they say, you're just an anxious person. You've got this disorder that's anxiety and you're just going to live with it forever and it can be managed. No, anxiety is a sin. Okay. Worry is a sin. And you can be saved from that sin and from that pain when you cry out to Jesus. Okay. So, the government wants to, if they want to screen anybody, really what they need to start doing is screening themselves for their own moral fitness, because this is just a totally immoral law. And I'm conservative cat, and I'm telling you, you don't need another state program. We need parents who are engaged. We need churches that are bold, and we need citizens who are awake, because once your child's soul becomes the property of the state, it's total game over. Total game over. Now, I do want to shift gears. I'm going to take a quick break. You're listening to Conservative Cat, but we are going to be talking about Pete Hegseth because he had just this beautiful takedown of Karen Bass, the LA mayor. And I think it's so funny that real leaders who actually lead and make tough decisions like Pete Hegseth, not these wannabe type leaders who go in front of the cameras and virtue signal and come up with these stupid social media posts. Not those people, but real leaders. They act the way Pete Hegseth did when taking down LA Mayor Karen Bass. They actually lead, okay, and they make the tough decisions, and then they execute the mission, and then when the mission's complete, they pull out, right? They withdraw the troops, and that's what's going on in LA. They are withdrawing the National Guard troops because the mission's complete. There were real leaders, Donald Trump, who actually led and made the tough decision of sending the National Guard out there. It was a tough decision. Let's make no mistake about that. It's a tough decision anytime you've got to deploy people, and especially when you're receiving pushback and the locals don't really like that. But you've got to make the tough decision and actually lead what is going to help the residents of LA. It was the presence, it was and is the presence of National Guard when there's these violent anti-ICE protests going on. So we're going to head on over to Los Angeles here quickly. Next on Conservative Cat, smash that like button, share this out with your friends. Welcome back to Conservative Cat Clips, where we claw through the lies and we lay out the truth. No filter, no fluff. I'm your host, Kat, and we're tackling the abortion debacle today, but this time we're pulling back the curtain on abortion's ugly origin story. Let's talk about Margaret Sanger, founder of what would become Planned Parenthood. The left treats her like some sort of feminist hero, but they conveniently leave out where she was a eugenicist and she spoke at KKK rallies, and she wanted to, quote, weed out the unfit. Her words, not mine, folks. In a 1938 letter, Sanger wrote about her plans to target Black communities, and I quote, "We do not want the word to get out that we want to exterminate the Negro population." Does that sound like they're trying to hide something, doesn't it? Planned Parenthood was built on this ideology, and Sanger didn't want to empower women. She wanted to control population growth, particularly among minorities, the poor, and the disabled, anyone she and her elite pals deemed less desirable. That's who she wanted to weed out. And guess what? The legacy still haunts the abortion industry today. Don't believe me? Look at the numbers. Black women make up about 13% of the population, but they account for nearly 40% of all abortions. You think that's by accident? No, ma'am. That's what's called targeted marketing and deception. They're marketing abortion to Black women. So while the media glamorizes abortion as freedom, let's be real. It started with a woman who thought freedom meant eliminating the weak. And while the left tears down statues of long dead so-called racists, they keep handing out awards named after Margaret Sanger. Hypocrisy much? The left is tearing down these statues, but yet they're handing out awards named after Margaret Sanger. Now, I know some folks are going to say, well, that was a long time ago, Kat, sure. But Planned Parenthood is still the nation's largest abortion provider. They're still planting clinics in these low-income minority neighborhoods, and they're marketing abortions to minorities. And they were raking in $500 million of taxpayer dollars, by the way, every year. And just until recently, President Donald Trump signed this executive order to end the federal taxpayer dollars to fund and promote elective abortion. The order recognizes that for nearly 5 decades, Congress enacted a little something called the Hyde Amendment. It's a series of additional laws to protect taxpayers from being forced to pay for abortion. That's what the Hyde Amendment does. Contrary to this longstanding common sense policy, the previous administration, Joe Biden, they dedicated all kinds of federal funding to elective abortion and a wide variety of government programs. This isn't about women's health. It's about politics, power, and profit. The future, it's up to us. In a post-Roe world, gives us this chance to right historic wrongs. We need laws that protect the unborn, support women, and finally shut down the lie that abortion is some kind of virtue. This has been Conservative Cat Clips. I'm Kat, reminding you that the truth has claws and history doesn't lie. Margaret Sanger's past isn't just history, it's the foundation of a system that we are fighting today. Stand tall, speak out, and choose life. Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat. Go ahead and smash that like button and share this out with your friends. When I hear the name Mayor Karen Bass, I don't think real leader. When I hear Pete Hegseth, I think real leader who is actually going to lead. Donald Trump, same thing. He's a real leader who's actually going to lead and make tough decisions. Not Mayor Bass, who goes out there and virtue signals on social media. And stands up to the real leaders and says, hey, we're standing up to you. That isn't a real leader. That is a wannabe leader. And this brings me to the city of Los Angeles this morning. Hey, if you're here, go ahead, subscribe while you're here and share this out with your friends. Be sure to leave a comment. Joe, I appreciate you being here. Worst governor in history of this now pathetic state. Yeah. Pretty pathetic. Worst governor in history. I can't believe he said, yeah, the buck stops with me and change takes time though. Dude, you've been there like 6 years. I mean, come on now. This is getting kind of ridiculous. Happy August 1st, by the way. I can't believe that it's already August. It's nice that it cooled down a little bit. Am I right? I hate the humidity. It's not that much fun. I mean, the corn makes it super humid. Like the water it lets off. It's almost like more humid than Florida. If I wanted to go live in Florida, I'd go live in Florida. I'd love to go live in Florida compared to here because it's the free state of Florida. But I really don't like the weather. I like, warm. I definitely like warmer states. I don't like the snow. But humid, I'm not a fan of that. I don't like stepping outside and then instantly being wet. So the city of Los Angeles, let's get to that. They continue to find itself under the so-called leadership. Like I said, she's not an actual leader. Mayor Karen Bass, who was living her best life in Africa on a trip to Ghana on behalf of the Biden-Harris administration in early January, even though there were advanced warnings, we know this, of advanced warnings of wildfires, potentially deadly wildfires that broke out in devastated parts of LA. Unfortunately, Bass is still failing her residents. She's still a failure or a terrible excuse for a leader. We saw this play out in June. In June of this year, Los Angeles and the anti-ICE riots that were going on in June, they got so out of control thanks to Bass's denial, Karen Bass's denial of reality. And they got completely out of control, and President Donald Trump had to step in, and he had to call the National Guard troops in to help restore order because LA residents were having their houses broken into, having their businesses broken into. There was cinder blocks being thrown into cars, big old bricks being thrown into windshields, and it was really getting out of control. And Donald Trump had to step in. We know this. So this prompted, of course, a legal battle between Donald J. Trump and California Governor Gavin Newsom, okay, over whether Trump had the authority to do this and actually deploy the National Guard. Yesterday, the New York Times reported that more troops were withdrawing from the area, from LA, in addition to the ones the Pentagon had released earlier this month. Okay, so there's a lot of withdrawing going on at this point in LA. It's already August. They're going to be withdrawing. Okay, the Pentagon a couple of days ago released more than, brought back the 1,000 troops that they had sent to Los Angeles in June. The latest scaling back of President Donald Trump's contentious deployment of National Guard in Southern California. The withdrawal was approximately 1,350 members of the Guard. Comes after thousands of troops were withdrawn or brought back in recent weeks. So they've been slowly pulling these troops out. Okay. So Sean Parnell, he is the chief Pentagon spokesman. Okay. He said in a statement that about 250 Guard soldiers would remain. So they're not all leaving Los Angeles to protect the federal personnel and property, federal personnel and property. So this demobilization of most of California's National Guard's 49th Military Police Brigade occurred with only about a week left in what the White House had suggested would be a 60-day deployment that began on June 7. So this pulling out is not happening outside of the timeline. Okay, they said they were going to be there for 60 days. We're probably a week out from that 60 days being up, and they're starting to pull them out now. Okay, though this is obviously because the mission is completed, mostly completed. Like I said, they've still got troops there, 250. Bass, she spun this, which is so funny, as a win, and that the troops are retreating, and she insinuated because they're retreating because of her and because of the left and because she had put pressure on the Trump administration and that the pressure was working. This is what she insinuated. Absolutely ridiculous. Here's what she said on X, quote, "Another win for Los Angeles tonight. 1,000 more troops are retreating. We will continue to pressure all troops until they are out of LA." Yeah, no. Sorry, Karen. That is not why the troops are retreating. So glad that P. Hegseth, chef's kiss, he had this beautiful response. He set her straight, folks, okay? He goes, quote, "You're welcome, Mayor. These brave troops are redeploying." So they're not deployed, but they're redeploying, they're withdrawing, because their mission was so successful. You should be thanking them for saving your city from mobs and chaos. We will continue to support law enforcement even when you won't. Beautiful, beautiful. Could not have said it better myself there, Pete. Now, she posted a very interesting message on July 15th, and I pulled this up the X. Quote, "This retreat happened because the people of Los Angeles stood united and stood strong." Look, they've been withdrawing, these guys. They probably overestimated 2 months. Okay, that was their timeline, 60 days. The Trump administration, they probably overkilled that timeline a little bit. It took them less time than originally planned to stop the mobs, okay, the anti-ICE riots. We know that stuff is dying down, okay? Our social media pages used to be full of it. Now they're not. So she said this on July 15th. This retreat happened because the people of Los Angeles stood united and stood strong. Here is my message for Angelonians. She says, it's clear. I will never stop fighting for the city. I will not stop making our voices heard until this ends. Not here in just LA, but throughout our country. Gosh, she's such a virtue signaling hag. I just, like, that is so, in my opinion, what is going on here? Like, you are not fighting for anybody. You literally were gone when your city was under threat. There were advanced warnings here of deadly wildfires, potentially deadly, and they were deadly wildfires. This was a bunch of horse crap. The retreat happened even back in July 15th because the administration considered the current operation a success and decided it was time to scale back. Okay, because that's what real leadership looks like. It means making the tough decisions, finishing the mission, and then pulling out. This had nothing to do with anything these sorry-ass Democrats in California did, okay, on X, or, because basically all they did was virtue signal and scream about how Donald Trump is orange man bad. Nothing. This had nothing to do with that, okay? And I said what I said. This is complete and utter horse crap. That they're saying that they're pulling out because we pressured them. We pressured them. We won. All right, let's get to this. I didn't get to this yesterday. I want to get to it today. Kathy Hochul and her pathetic excuse for Zohran Mamdani. So this is the guy trying to be the New York City mayor. She had this really pathetic excuse for the guy because she was questioned about the vile comments, truly vile, and I'll get to some of them here, that this guy made in 2020 about police officers. They were anti-cop attacks in 2020. The internet is forever, by the way. Okay, these didn't go away. And her pathetic excuse really should be marveled at. It should be studied. It should be noted. And I hope that it does her harm in the upcoming gubernatorial race against her probable opponent, Elise Stefanik, which I'm very excited about. Zohran Mamdani was getting married in Uganda compound, and he was actually surrounded by armed guards, by the way. So this happened. He's getting married, and he's got all these armed guards, and these armed guards were, of course, paid for probably by his wealthy parents. So while he was off getting married in Uganda, the shooting had happened in New York. Okay, there were multiple people who died, 4 people, and then the shooter had killed himself. Okay, then in that NYPD officer was killed, and this happened in the city that he is seeking to be mayor of. Okay, so Zohran, he said that he felt bad for the NYPD. Most Democrats came out and said, I feel bad for the NYPD. And then they used this we talked about it yesterday, as a talking point to ban guns, although so-called assault weapons have been banned in New York since 2013. AR-15s have been banned in New York since 2013. He, like other Democrats as well, have a backlog of truly vile, nasty, cop-hating rhetoric. Okay, so he, like all of these other Democrats, they used this shooting to push a political talking point that they always do, that guns are bad and guns kill people. Really, people kill people. But we also can't forget that Zohran, he has a backlog of tweets that are truly just anti-cop. And Democrat Kathy Hochul was asked about this. She was challenged on it, and she had a very stupid response. She was challenged on it, and by challenged, I mean she was asked to respond to Elise Stefanik's comments. Elise Stefanik is probably going to unseat her in the gubernatorial race. That would be so great if New York flipped red. And Elise Stefanik is truly an amazing candidate. So Elise Stefanik pointed out that Zohran Mamdani hates cops, and she pointed this out. And of course, Hochul was asked to respond to that, considering an NYPD officer died. Hochul called the attacks that called Elise Stefanik's attacks against Zohran Mamdani pathetic. This is what Hochul said, because he made those comments in 2020, and everyone in their party, they were all virtue signaling about how much they hated cops, and that the attacks are, pathetic, according to Kathy Hochul, the attacks of Elise Stefanik. So, quote, that's about as pathetic as it gets. This is what Kathy Hochul says. I mean, seriously, going after an unelected official, which at the time, I think he was an assemblyman. I got to double check that. But going after an unelected official, currently he's unelected. I think that he's not currently an assemblyman. At the time he was. For something he said back in 2020 when many people were, I mean, come on, give me a break. So let's take a listen to the actual clip itself of Kathy Hochul. Here we go.
Governor, the shooting comes as you're facing your own tough reelection campaign, and Republican Congresswoman Elise Stefanik, who could challenge you in that race, posted to X overnight saying, we cannot allow radical anti-police, dangerous policies to continue. And then she went on to attack the New York mayoral candidate, Zohran Mamdani, saying, flashback, Kathy Hochul's very own Kami Mamdani, a disgrace and truly unfit to be mayor of New York City. The post, June 2020 post from Mamdani calling to, quote, defund the police. What do you say to Congresswoman Stefanik?
That's about as pathetic as it gets. I mean, seriously, going after an unelected official who said something back in 2020 when many people were. I mean, come on, give me a break.
Governor, the shooting comes as you're facing.
Okay. So you don't have to take my word for it. There she is. So Zohran Mamdani, he was first elected in 2020. He unseated an incumbent. He has held this position since 2021. So he was elected in 2020, and then he was reelected in 2022 and 2024. And now he's running for governor. So, yes, I guess it's pathetic to hold elected officials responsible for the words that come out of their mouth. Apparently, according to Kathy Hochul, that is, how dare you? How dare you hold elected officials accountable for what they say? So, I mean, come on. He was an elected official. Something else happened in 2020. Zohran Mamdani was elected by New York Democrats to the assembly. Okay, so the same New York Democrats who elected Kathy Hochul as lieutenant governor. So to recap, Zohran Mamdani, his anti-NYPD rhetoric, I want to look at some of the rhetoric now. But he made this rhetoric when he was elected, okay, when he was obviously elected in 2020. So though she's wrong, okay, fact check on Kathy Hochul as well. But he made some of these comments, and we're going to get to them in 2020. And he's now looking to be the mayor of this city. Okay, so he had NYPD rhetoric, and to clarify, the city mayor is in charge of the NYPD. So here's some of the things he has said. Let's look at this. Queer liberation means defunding the police. This was an X post that he made in 2020. Another one. We don't need an investigation to know that the NYPD is racist, anti-queer, and a major threat to public safety. What we need to do is hashtag defund NYPD. No fake cuts. Defund the police. So take a look at this tweet here. This is fascinating. So Ben Max, he got out there and he started talking about Cuomo. He tweeted this. He says, Cuomo, when people are saying, Cuomo said this, when people are saying defund the police, they're saying they want to see real fundamental change. He says, the state is passing an important package of reforms, and local mayors and police departments must also hear the people and make changes. And Zohran Mamdani, he commented on Cuomo's statements. Really, Cuomo was saying that that's what they were saying, which we all know that the radical left was not saying that. Cuomo's wrong there. We all know the radical left truly wanted to eradicate the police during the 2020 George Floyd BLM riots. Okay. We know that that was their position. And so Zohran Mamdani just made that clear on X. He said, no, we actually want to defund the police. So his position's very clear. He hates the cops. I mean, clearly he wanted to eradicate the police at the time of 2020 and defund them completely. So instead of focusing on Zohran anti-NYPD hate before him being elected to the mayor, before him being elected to mayor of New York City, Hochul said focus should be on assault weapons. So she didn't want to focus on the anti-NYPD hate of Zohran. She said, let's focus on assault weapons, which is so funny because as I talked about a couple of days ago on the show, and they're archived always, subscribe to the channel. NYPD, or like New York City, has banned all assault weapons since like 2013. Like they've been banned forever. Okay. This shooting happened in a no-gun zone. And, you know, I wish Democrats would just be freaking honest, right? Like, just come out and tell us what you want. What you want is the eradication of all guns. You do not, just like you want, and that's at least one thing I can say about Zohran Mamdani. Okay, sometimes you get these Cuomo types who say, oh, well, people who say defund the police, they don't actually mean defund the police. They just mean that they want fundamental change. Okay. No, tell us who you are straight up. Don't lie to me. And I wish Democrats would just be honest and say that they want to ban all guns and that they hate the Second Amendment and they want to take it out of the Constitution. I wish they would just come out and say that. Okay. Now, I think it's hypocritical of Zohran Mamdani. He had this Ugandan compound he was getting married at, and there were a bunch of guns there used to guard the wedding. Okay, because it's in Uganda. So, of course, they're for weapons for thee, but not for me, right? Democrats are so unpopular at this point, and they're more unpopular than they ever have been. Their approval rating is at record lows. I think it's like 19% approval rating for congressional House members. And the key reason here is because you have your Kathy Hochuls out there pretending that the internet isn't forever, and pretending like Zohran's comments about police officers during 2020 aren't of concern, especially considering he's running for mayor who's in charge of the police. And at the time he was an elected official. This is why people can't stand the left. It's because of how insane they've become and how far left they've become. Now, I want to get to this. I am going to take a quick break, but we want to get to CNN and Scott Jennings today because America has seen growth. And I love how Scott Jennings is making the left eat their own words and making these experts eat their own words because the media, they all repeated this negative talking point that Donald Trump's tariffs are going to cause a recession. Well, we didn't see a recession. Okay, we saw opposite of a recession. We actually saw growth. So it turns out Trump's agenda is working. And I think that they are all acting now like surprised by this. That's their next talking point. Okay. They're going to be like, oh, it's so shocking that we didn't go into a recession after these tariffs. Everybody said that we weren't, like the Scott Jennings, they all said that Trump's tariffs were not going to send America into a recession and actually would probably help the economy. CNN would report that the tariffs were a tax and that they were going to hurt the consumer, and it's actually not true. So CNN, Scott Jennings, he remembers all of the reports that CNN and these experts had, these economic experts, and now he's making them eat their own words, and you won't want to miss it here. Next on Conservative Cat. Smash that like button, share this out with your friends. I'll be right back. Back to Conservative Cat Clips, where we don't tiptoe. No. We stomp with the facts. I'm your host, Kat, and today we're talking about immigration, not the fairy tale version, but the real story. So buckle up. Let's rewind. Yes, America is a nation of immigrants, sure. But guess what else? We're a nation of laws. Okay, so from the get-go, we welcomed immigrants, folks who played by the rules, brought their skills, worked hard, and wanted to become an American and participate in our culture here, not just use America. So for over 200 years, we had rules, a process. You applied, you waited, and you earned your place. That's not xenophobia, that's order, by the way. And then enter in the 1965 Immigration and Nationality Act. That was a big turning point. It ditched the merit-based entry and it opened the floodgates for chain migration. This is where you, your grandkids, and your grandkids' dog and cousin can come over just because you're here. Okay, from there, it was a race to be the most compassionate. Okay, who could be the most compassionate? And the Democrats raced to create legislation and tried to virtue signal that they were the most compassionate, aka compassionate means reckless. Okay, so fast forward to 2021, under the Biden administration, it was a full-on border circus, over 8 million illegal border crossings, 2.4 million in just 2023 alone under Joe Biden's watch. Entire cities were being overwhelmed. Remember Springfield, Ohio. And instead of fixing it, the left is just handing out hotel rooms, driver's licenses here in the state of Illinois, health insurance, coverage, and voting rights. There was an actual immigrant. I forget where he was from. I think he was a Venezuelan immigrant or something. He got to vote in the Chinese. He was a Chinese national, and he got to vote in our elections. And it's just like we're throwing this out like candy at a parade for all of these illegal immigrants. And you know, who's paying for all of this? You are. Taxpayers are footing the bill. The housing, the healthcare costs, and American vets, meanwhile, are sleeping under bridges, and middle-class families can't afford eggs. Okay, so let's not forget about the security crisis either, okay, because that's a big part of this as well. Terror watch lists, encounters were at record highs. Fentanyl was pouring over the border, flooding the border. And the cartels were alive and well under the Biden administration. They were thriving under Joe Biden's open door policy. But sure, let's talk about humanitarian values. Kids are being trafficked over the border by smugglers. And, oh, yeah, this is the most humanitarian thing to do. Give me a break. The future, it's on the line. Because either we enforce our laws or we lose the meaning of citizenship altogether. And that's what the left's ultimate goal is to hell with sovereignty, to hell with citizenship. Immigration can be good if it's legal and it's controlled and it's fair immigration. But here comes the other turning point. So in 1965, we had a turning point, and that's where everybody was just starting to race to be the most compassionate, aka everybody was just being reckless. But Trump 2025, this is another turning point. So he is, not just talking about a wall, but he is talking about a hammer. He's come down with his border czar, Tom Homan. Under the Trump administration's new immigration plan, he promised to deliver the largest, and he has, deportation operation in U.S. history. And we're talking about detention centers, fast track removals. That guy who threatened Donald Trump to assassinate him, he was an illegal immigrant, came into the country 9 times illegally, broke into the country 9 times between 1998 and I think it was 2005. Boy. So the left is going to cry racism. We know this, but Trump's plan is really about this sovereignty. Okay, not skin color. It's about sovereignty and having a nation with borders. Really, what the left wants is to do away with sovereignty. Donald Trump reinstated the Remain in Mexico policy. He ended Biden's abuse of asylum loopholes. And you want to come here? Great, do it legally. And you got to be, even legal immigrants have got to want to be American. Okay, they've got to want to conform to the culture. And we can't take anymore. Okay, we just can't. The blue state mayors are even screaming, we can't take anymore, because it's a strain on our resources, and we really have to be selective now with our immigration. This has been Conservative Cat Clips, reminding you that borders are not racist. They're responsible. Laws don't make you cruel. They make you civilized. Let's fix immigration. Let's do it the American way, the legal way, orderly and fair. Hey, smash that like button, share this out with your friends, and subscribe to the channel. Visit patriotpumpenergy.com and buy your bottle of premium workout. It's on the shelf next to me. It is a fantastic free-workout, and Christmas is just around the corner. Be sure to buy it for somebody you love. It is no artificial colorings. There is black pepper extract, and it is something that can keep your focus all day long. And there's not a ton of caffeine in it, which is something that I really like, because a lot of those energy drinks that you buy in the store, they're just not good for you. And there's just a ton of unnecessary caffeine in it. All right. So let's take a look at this. Scott Jennings. He remembers, the experts saying, oh, Donald Trump's tariffs are going to lead to a recession. And the media, of course, repeated these negative talking points, allowed these experts to come on and say that Trump's agenda wasn't going to work. And now I'm sure they're all going to come out and act really, really surprised that Trump's tariffs didn't send us into a recession. Okay, I'm sure they're going to come out now and say, oh, we're just so shocked that this didn't lead to a recession. So a recession is when America sees 2 consecutive quarters of negative growth. America has seen growths, and Scott Jennings is now making the experts eat their words. Unless, of course, the recession happens under a Democrat president, like the people who control Joe Biden. I won't even call him president, respect the office. Whoever controlled Joe Biden, unless it happens under that kind of administration. The definition of recession gets changed and redefined by the left and the media. They also tried to change the definition of the word definition, during the Joe Biden administration. So they love to change the definition of words, the meanings of words, when it benefits their political advancement or for their political advantage and for their agenda. So besides inflation going down and jobs going up, America saw 3% growth in last quarter. That's 3.1% more than the negative growth the experts had claimed that we were going to see because of the Trump tariff policies. So Jennings, he wants us to know where all these experts are now. Take a listen to this clip. Here we go.
Well, I would just like to go, but I'd like to build a DeLorean and go back to April when everybody here was predicting likely to cause a recession. Investment stops and a recession happens. They're not talking about a U.S. recession. They're talking about a global recession. Lead to recession. Eventually, there'll be a reception.
Palpable panic on Wall Street, red numbers and worries about something else that starts with an R, recession.
You called the recession. You called it.
And
You
Germany.
took your shoe off.
And Joe, would you like to see that again?
You took your shoe off. You brought cookies out here.
15% shoe.
You took your shoe off and you said there was going to be a recession.
Listen, economic circumstances have now been put in place that most Wall Street economists of senior note say are likely to cause a recession.
GDP is
It's
3%.
too early to give a final
called it.
All right,
verdict.
Scott,
It's too
what was-
early. Just a second, Abby.
Yeah.
He's basically calling me
Yeah.
out here. It's too early to give a final verdict on the tariffs. You may wish to, but at the moment, it can't be said what the long-term effect is going
Richard,
to be.
I am just a journalist, and all I
No, you're not.
all I can
Scott.
do is read the economic
It's a
data.
bit of a stretch. but-
3%
Sorry,
GDP,
Scott Jennings.
trade deals, record high in the
Oh,
stock
come
market,
on, these trade
cooling
deals,
inflation.
these trade deals are
Hold on a second.
garbage.
It's actually much simpler.
Garbage?
Yes.
Hold
Oh,
on a second.
You guys are so mad. Why are you rooting for
Because-
failure?
because-
Why does this table root for failure?
Quiet, please, because you are saying that
You're
you
rooting
are
for
taking,
failure.
you are taking a number of 40, 50, 60% back in April, and you're comparing it to a number of 10, 15% now.
Fine, but
yes,
it's a
it is.
strategy to negotiate and create leverage
Scott,
and
but
give us the
that's still-
situation
it
we're in
is
today.
completely
Oh boy. So Jennings did something that I have been dying to see for years be done. I've been dying to see this done for years on CNN. He actually provides the receipts here, like actual receipts. He posted this to his X account. I'll share this with you. These are simply just the quotes. Every single time CNN, his peers, his colleagues cried recession, and he provides receipts of when they actually said it. So here's one. The only problem is economic circumstances have now been put in place that most Wall Street economists of senior note say are likely to cause a recession. Recession. Here, that was, and he provides the date there when they said it. It was a CNN interview. Another quote. And at some point, ladies and gentlemen, at some point, there's is so much disruption that the market simply can't take it, and jobs go, investment stops, and a recession happens. So these are all his colleagues who have said, a recession is going to happen, and he provides the receipts that they said it. Okay. And now we have 3% GDP growth. Okay. We heard a lot about the R word prior to this growth that we're having. 2 consecutive periods of negative growth, or 2 consecutive quarters of negative growth is the definition of a recession. We did not see that. In fact, we saw 3% GDP growth. So he provides all the receipts, and I'm so glad that he did. I've wanted to see that happen on CNN and have them eat their own words. And Scott Jennings made these experts eat their own words. Now, I've been doing this long enough, reporting on news and covering CNN and their antics long enough to know that they're not going to kind of print any kind of retraction. They're not going to report accurately on anything that Republicans do or say, especially when those things are great for America. They want to see America fall. They want the destruction of America. So they will never report accurately what Republicans say, especially when those things, or what Republicans do, especially when those things pan out great for America. So pan out for America and are bad for their progressive ideology or their progressive agenda. So they'll never report accurately. And that's fine, because I know that fewer and fewer people are getting their news from CNN anyway. That's usually just old white people, old white grannies, okay, who are getting their news from cable TV, and they're staying in front of the TV for far too long. Okay, it's still fun watching them get owned like this and totally get obliterated by Scott Jennings. So I'm going to pull stories like this for the conservative cat show, because it's completely amusing. And I think it's also amusing that clearly these people want America to be destroyed. They can't admit that a Republican is doing something good for the country and has done something good through his tariff policies. They can't admit that. So this is really bad for the journalism industrial complex, because it just goes to show you how untrustworthy they truly are. They said recession, repeated the R word multiple times, and we weren't anywhere near a recession. It's the exact opposite. So the last story I want to give you guys is about Senator Warren, Lizzie. This is kind of funny. It's funny, but it's actually kind of heartwarming, because this was a moment that she took a bad tumble on the Senate floor. I'm sure you've seen the clip. But this was a moment of rare bipartisanship when she took this bad tumble on the floor, because within seconds, Ted Cruz was actually there to help her up. So in a video, Warren can be seen standing next to a table, and she appears to be like swaying a little bit. Now, come on, folks. Like a lot of these senators and congressmen, they are dinosaurs. Like, look at Dick Durbin. Okay. Senator Warren. They are like literally ancient. Okay. And she's swaying a little bit. So I hope she's okay. But then for some odd reason, she like leans backward a smidge, and then she falls against this table, and then she tumbles to the ground. So let's share with you the moment. And then we'll talk about Ted Cruz and how he came to her aid. Take a look.
Senators voting in the affirmative.
So she like sways, leans back,
Durbin, Heinrich,
and then she falls on a table.
Morono, Kane.
And that's Senator Ted Cruz right there in the like tannish looking suit. So he quickly stepped in to help her and to make sure that she was okay. So this was a very rare moment of bipartisanship that you got to see there. And immediately after she took this tumble, it was all, by the way, Republican male lawmakers who rushed over to her. There were a few female Democrat leaders who came over to help her out, but you definitely didn't see any Democrat males rushing to her aid. Let's watch a longer bit of the clip. Here we go.
Affirmative. Baldwin, Blunt Rochester, Durbin,
Whoa!
Heinrich,
Democrat. That's Tammy.
Morono, Kane, Kim, King, Klobuchar. Affirmative.
Okay, so you can see Rand Paul, you can see Ted Cruz in that clip, but no male Democrats were to be found. You can actually see Tammy Duckworth. You know, she can't really do much to help her up, but she came to her aid and tried to make sure she was okay. So there were female Democrats. That just goes to show you how soy boy a lot of these Democrat senators are. So shortly after the senator fell, of course, Twitter blew up. People used Trump's nickname for her, Pocahontas. I like this X post. This is the most pathetic, or this is the most Pocahontas Warren thing I've ever seen I've seen in a long time. Kind of surprised she didn't blame Donald Trump for her falling backwards. The GOP men, they of course rushed to her aid. Her colleagues, her Democrat male colleagues, did not rush to her aid. Democrat masculinity is in crisis. So despite these few comments, I thought that this was, and they were trolling Elizabeth Warren, like naturally, right? She's a terrible woman. So, and she wasn't seriously hurt. So I think that the trolling is, somewhat funny. She was fine. But I think that despite all the trolling and everything, it was really heartwarming to see this moment of bipartisanship, this rare moment of bipartisanship. And seeing, when your colleague is in trouble, it's not time to align with your party. Okay. It's about a human trying to help another human who's been fallen or who had fallen. Okay. And Ted Cruz and, Rand Paul was right there. They understand that. It's unfortunate that the Democrat males don't get that. Ironically, on Thursday, just hours after she fell, by the way, she posted a clip of her slamming bipartisan bills. Okay, so despite that moment of bipartisanship, and she like pats Ted Cruz on the hand here, like when he goes to pick her up, you can see it. It's kind of tough to see, but like when he picks her up, she kind of pats him on the hand as a way to say thank you, like thanks for helping me up. But clearly, you know, this moment didn't change her beliefs or her feelings about her Republican colleagues, because she went on X and she posted this. She goes, quote, "Why should Democrats support bipartisan bills for Republicans? For Republicans to turn around and delete parts that President Donald Trump doesn't like." So I'm going to share this clip, and it's just so unfortunate because, you know, she posted this clip, and it was just hours after, you know, Ted Cruz helped her up and was very kind to her, and she's still going to be nasty to her Republican colleagues, and Donald Trump, orange man bad, and how dare her Republican colleagues listen to anything that the president has to say. Take a listen to this. Here we go.
Now let's be clear about what's happening here. Step one, Congress negotiates a compromise that both Republicans and Democrats support, and it's signed into law. Step two, Trump tells Republicans what parts of that deal that he wants to cancel. Step three, Republicans in the Senate bend the knee and follow Trump's orders to cancel the money. But wait, there is more. Apparently, step four is Republicans turn around and with a straight face ask Democrats to negotiate more deals for the next year's funding, starting the whole rinse and repeat process again, beginning with this bill to fund veterans services. Now, let's be clear about what's happening here. Step one.
Okay. So she posted this, and of course she's being nasty towards her Republican colleagues, accusing them of taking things out of bills because at the behest of President Donald Trump. During her little speech, Warren reflected on past bills that have been passed with Republicans, both Republican support and Democrat support. But then she slammed the GOP, and she said that they've continued to bend the knee and give Donald Trump what he wants. Okay. For example, I mean, the BBB, right? They said that the BBB, the big beautiful bill, is going to kill everybody. Okay. And that this wasn't a bipartisan bill. Here's a section within the BBB that is clearly bipartisan. There are things that are in the BBB that I don't like as a hard conservative, as somebody on the hard right. And definitely this was a compromise. So they zeroed out, and Elizabeth Warren specifically was really upset about this. They zeroed out this tax on suppressors, okay, gun suppressors, okay. It was a $200 tax, and then you had to register your suppressor. Now, what they should have done, the Republicans, and what I would have wanted as somebody on the hard right, was to get rid of the registry altogether. Okay. Democrats, they're anti-Second Amendment. They don't like guns, right? Because they're afraid of them. And they probably have never really shot one. Elizabeth Warren probably has never even used a suppressor. If she has used a suppressor, she would know that it really doesn't silence the weapon. A suppressor is an accurate term for it because it really just brings it down by like 30 decibels or something crazy. Like it's not even that. It's not even that effective in most cases. Like unless you have like a really expensive suppressor. But anyway, the registry still exists. So that is clearly bipartisan, what they were doing there with this one provision in the BBB. So to come out and say that they are just bending the knee to Donald Trump and giving him whatever he wants, it's just not true. And by the way, voters want to see Democrats not resist President Donald Trump's agenda, by the way. Okay, there's a new poll out there. They want to see the parties working together. They want to see them work with the president and with Donald Trump's America First policies. Okay, so according to a new poll, and here's what it found, among all the respondents, 46% answered work with Donald Trump. Not work with Republicans, but work with Donald Trump. 46%. That's nearly that's quite a bit, okay, of all the respondents. 19% said resist Donald Trump, and a sizable 26% said it depends on the issue, and only 9% said not sure. So what does that mean? 46 plus 26. Okay, that is 72. An overwhelming 72% of these respondents in this poll would like to see Democrats cooperate with Donald Trump, at least on an issue-by-issue basis. Okay, just 19%, which is a very small fraction of the American people. They do want to see Democrats resist all Trumpian initiatives, which is why I'm so shocked when I hear Governor J.B. Pritzker, his whole platform for his 2026 gubernatorial run is resist Donald Trump. It is not a winning issue. I don't know how you plan to win unless you plan to steal elections on this issue. And that's why I'm always so shocked when, you've got Democrats running on, bad, Donald Trump bad, I hate Donald Trump. And then they ultimately win. A lot of people just want Democrats to work with President Donald Trump. And I'm sure yesterday we talked, or a couple of days ago, we talked about the SNAP error rate here in Illinois being 11.56%. That is a huge error rate in comparison to other states. I think there are only 11 other states outside of Illinois that have a higher SNAP error rate. What is a SNAP error rate? It's when ours specifically is when we're overpaying people for SNAP. We suck at issuing the benefits, the DHS. That's what that says. Now there are 38 states that are have a lower error rate than that of Illinois. States of similar size or demographics, you've got Michigan, Texas. Okay, these are massive states. So our error rate, who have a lower error rate, which is at 8 to 10%. And what the federal government does, there's a new federal law out there that says that, hey, you have to pay back some of these benefits to the federal government if you have a substantial error rate. Okay, so we're looking at near $800 million payout, the state of Illinois to the federal government because of our error rate. We have to get that under control. Something like that is definitely, I would imagine, an issue that they want that Americans would want, or Illinoisans would want Governor J.B. Pritzker to work with the president on. Okay, issue by issue basis. 26% said it depends on the issue. I would imagine most Americans would want you to work with Donald Trump on this initiative of accountability, making sure we aren't overpaying people on SNAP. Okay. Clearly, the senator here, Senator Elizabeth Warren, she missed the point of working together. It's kind of disappointing to see that, especially considering, she fell backwards on this table, and hours afterwards, she posted this on X where she was attacking her Republican colleagues for possibly cooperating with Donald Trump. Oh God, how dare you? Working with the president of the United States who was duly elected by the American people. How could you? And even so, I would say that there are multiple things that aren't so MAGA in the BBB. For example, the silencer tax that was zeroed out, but it wasn't eliminated like the tax stamp, so the registry wasn't eliminated. So there were things in the BBB that the far right, which they say Donald Trump is, that we don't like, okay, that the far right wouldn't like, and that was clearly attempts to work with the other side of the aisle on this bill. Yeah, very unfortunate. All right, I think that's going to do it for us today. Happy Friday to you guys. I appreciate you being here this morning. Go ahead, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel. Monday morning, we will be back. It is a daily show, Central Time, 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. be sure to go to patriotpumpenergy.com and buy your bottle of pre-workout today. It's a premium pre-workout, no artificial colorings, keeps you focused, not a ton of caffeine, but just enough to keep your workout fueled and of excellence. So bye-bye, be blessed, and have a safe and happy weekend. I'll talk to you tomorrow, or I'll talk to you on Monday.